I think there's a clamour for those players that certainly, Manchester United, Liverpool, I think any club really, Everton, certainly Northwest clubs, particularly Northeast with Newcastle. You love having young players and
Local
academy
players.
players come through. I think the problem is from seeing football is that sometimes is that they then can become the scapegoat very quickly. So not necessarily on ability perspective, but if there is a drop off maybe in, and I'm not saying those players particularly, but if there's a drop off in perceived attitude or perceived work rate, it's then a case of, well, they're a Manchester lad, they're from Liverpool, how can they be like this? They should know what it means to play for the club and things. But also, once you get into that professional environment, it's a job. It is a job, and that's another reason why us as youth coaches, we've got to protect these players and these children from it being a job too early, because I do think it's starting to become a job too early now. It's a job when you get to scholars 16 to 18, but it's not really a job, but it is because you are coming into the club every day and doing college work and things, but it's not a job. But when they're in the first team, I think we forget sometimes that yes, it was a hobby that they became very, very good at. And we want to, as coaches, we want to instill this lifelong love of football. And that's what's absolutely huge. But we've got to make sure that we also recognise that this is now a job with agents, with maybe with wives, with girlfriends, with partners who maybe want to live in a different part, who maybe are from a different part and things. And that's not to say that they shouldn't give everything for the club, but I think sometimes when maybe a player's been 2-3 years, there's a lot of pressure on that player if they're a local player and they're not maybe performing as well as they've potentially done in the past, and maybe moving out of the area. If you can imagine, I imagine it a pop star. I don't think there's many pop stars or rock stars that stay living in the same house. So Paul McCartney and John Lennon didn't stay living in that house for long. There's a band from Manchester, Oasis. They didn't stay living in that house for very long. They very quickly moved away. Doesn't mean that they don't love Liverpool, don't love London, don't love Manchester, but it becomes too much. And I think potentially the goldfish bowl effect, and people know where they're from, who the friends are. Everybody's got an opinion. I play football with him. I went to school with him. I dated him. And I think potentially sometimes you're moving out to a different city, different environment where there's not as many, not hangers on, but there's people who know you growing up.
Yeah.
It maybe releases a bit of that. That's my thought.
I mean, look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? Like, it was brutal.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that, it was that fraught, him leaving the club, because I guess you understand that he's from there and the fans had this expectation, but my God, that was hard to watch. I really felt for him, but it's purely because he was from, he's from Liverpool. And grew up in the club.